Hey everyone, it's Dan from Proguides here bringing you a warding guide. Warding is the elephant in the room that most people ignore because of how boring it is, but warding is so important to winning MMR. Without proper vision, it is borderline impossible to play the game. In this guide, we'll go over the different stages of the game in order to ward effectively, starting from early game to late game. Before we get into the video though, here is the question of the day. How many dewards do you successfully get on average each game? Now, let's head straight into the video. For optimal warding before the game starts, vision should be given to the off lane and mid lane because you are limited with 2 wards in the very beginning. Generally, this will mean that the mid laner should get their own ward, and it's up to either the off laner or the POS 4 to get vision down for the off lane. The reason that mid lane needs a ward is so they can have vision of one rune spawn and preferably have uphill vision of the enemy mid laner. This information is too valuable because it allows the mid laner to safely play more aggressively, know when ganks are coming, CS better because they're able to react to the enemy mid laner's last hitting animations, and know where the rune spawns immediately. The off lane enjoys having the ward because their creep wave will generally be right at the enemy safe lane's tier 1 tower. In other words, an incredibly dangerous place to be because of added tower regen and armor. There are also many ways to feed by having no protection from your own creep wave. The enemy support won't be afraid to cast their spells on you at that point since there's no threat to them. There's no way to pull back the wave either as the first creep wave comes through because neutral camps don't spawn until minute 1. The reason that the POS 5 is discouraged from getting wards is because there is simply too much walking they would have to do before placing the wards down. This time is typically better spent trying to contest a rune. Not to mention, the vision required at this point is not needed for the safe lane most of the time. The safe lane doesn't need vision protection until rotations start happening, which is usually around the 5 to 6 minute mark. Not to mention that there's no cost to ward since patch 7.23, so there isn't any point in POS 5's hoarding the pregame wards. After the first set of wards expire, usually the 3 lanes buy wards to protect their respective lanes. The mid lane needs the ward for the same reasons as before, but it is even more important now because they're more vulnerable to ganks due to having less vision during nighttime. Also, supports like roaming at this point because of bounties and power rune spawns, so it is a dangerous point in the game. The safe lane needs a ward for protection from the mid laner that is now seeking to gank, preferably around power rune timings, and also as a protection from TPs to the enemy's offlane tier 1 tower. The offlane will want the ward to see any potential ganks, again potentially coming from the mid lane. In other words, having vision of the mid laner's movements is crucial at this stage of the game. The mid laners will have their power spike in the form of their ulti, and can ensure practically any kill at this point. The enemy mid laner's attention will be mainly focused on the core that is owning on your team, who is also capable of dying. It is important to make sure that your vulnerable cores are protected with vision in order to help prevent your strong cores from dying at this point in the game. Needless to say, the mid laners will determine how the pace of the game will go for the next 4 minutes until daytime. At this point, having vision on certain eye spots isn't bad. The enemies won't suspect there to be wards at these hills at this point in the game, so this could provide valuable protection for your cores that won't easily get dewarded. At this point in the game, if the enemies have a hero that likes to massively farm the jungle, then it is a good time to make a smoke rotation to place sentries to block enemy jungle camps. If the enemies have an alchemist or a meepo, this is necessary to help slow down their farm in order for your cores to not be super far behind these fast farmers. The reason it is nice to block camps at this point is because heroes are still laning and don't have the proper resources to stop you from placing sentries across their jungle. It is also nighttime, so it will be harder to spot someone placing wards down. Not only can you block their camps, you can place a ward down so that you can catch the enemy cores farming their triangle or safe lane jungle. Again, because of where the wards need to go at the 5 to 6 minute mark, the POS 5 shouldn't be purchasing all the wards at this stage. However, they should get a ward for the safe lane core if they plan to leave because it will be their fault if the core dies without having vision to protect them. The safe lane core can also obtain this ward if their support isn't purchasing it. When the laning stage is over, more aggressive wards on the enemy side are ideal. Getting vision of the enemy triangle area, their safe lane jungle, can help make rotations or ganks easier. One defensive ward is nice to have as well to protect your cores while they jungle. Depending on your game plan, it's more important to have defensive wards versus aggressive. If you have a late game monster like Spectre, it is probably more ideal to have more defensive vision to protect the Spectre while she jungles or farms the lane instead of having more aggressive vision. By having more defensive vision means having more wards on your side of the map rather than on the enemy's side of the map. Having a spare ward for a teamfight is very important as well because it often means the difference between winning or losing a fight. Don't use all the wards, keep one in storage so that you can use it to win a teamfight. a team fight will be way less hectic with vision to fight and information as to where the enemy's key heroes are. This is especially true if the fight is taken during nighttime. It will be near impossible to fight without vision during nighttime. At this point in the game, the Pos 5 should be placing the wards and be continuously placing wards, unless the Pos 4 is a hero that can place vision easier, such as a Bounty Hunter or Treant Protector. The mid-game warding is similar to after laning, but there is a distinct difference, namely Roshan. This is also at the point of the game where smokes will make a critical turning point in the game. At this point, it is important to have river vision of the Rosh pit to see enemy movements either towards or away from Roshan. On top of wards being in the enemy's jungle area, you can keep tabs of where the enemies want to be next. If they're all missing, that is a huge red flag that the enemy team is either smoking or going to take Roshan. If you're lucky, you can catch the enemies smoking with a key ward in their jungle or in their base. Placing a base ward is nice at this point because unless you're sieging high ground, the enemies won't necessarily suspect a ward in their base at this point. By having a base ward at this point too, you could potentially see an enemy smoke rotation because it is safe to smoke in the base rather than smoking where they could be visioned down, such as in the triangle area. At this point in the game, it is also important to protect wards. If you have an advantage in the game, don't give an area away without contesting the enemy team. Place vision at key hill eye spot areas, such as in the enemy triangle. If you're able to successfully protect that area, you will be able to choke the enemies out. Not to mention, most supports will be baited into wanting to deward that area, which can mean an easy pickoff. After a pickoff, they lose that area in terms of farm. So slowly but surely, they will lose more and more net worth. And with one Roshan, your team can easily take high ground without the enemy team being able to stop you. However, it is important to mention that trying to secure the enemy's triangle is one of the hardest parts of the map to secure. So be careful when placing vision on a hill eye spot there because it will be easily dewarded if you aren't able to secure it. The late game is the most important part of the game to have vision down because every hero is nearly fully slotted, aka a carry. This is also simultaneously the hardest part of the game to have vision down because everyone doesn't have slots to place wards down. Having mentioned that, any pickoff at this point in the game can mean losing the game. Having tinker wards can be beneficial and lane wards close to the enemy's base to spot movement. It would be easier to get a pickoff when you have vision of the enemies as they leave their base or when they are hiding in trees. At this point, everyone is trying to be careful to not show on the map. However, by splitting up the map by pushing out lanes and having one lane that the enemy is forced to push out with one guy is the perfect opportunity to get the game-winning pickoff. Dewarding and warding go hand in hand, but it isn't the easiest task to do, especially if the enemies aren't placing wards on the eye hill spots. However, even if they do, an effective way of placing sentries would be to place the sentry between areas. There are spots that sentries can effectively cover for a large area that won't waste sentries. If you place sentries on the eye spots, you aren't wasting sentries if they aren't on there. Sentries are limited too, so they ideally shouldn't be wasted. An easy way to tell if the enemies have vision is seeing their movement in regards to your own. For example, if they're staggering plenty or even walk the opposite direction from you, odds are they have vision in the area that you are occupying. There are camps where if the tree is cut down, there could potentially be a ward placed down. Supports are getting creative with quelling blades to place down wards by cutting down certain trees. If you want to deward a camp that is being blocked in the laning stages of the game, you can place a sentry in the middle of the camp, and that will cover any ward that is in the camp without using multiple sentries. Afterwards, you can deny the sentry so that the camp is unblocked. Another nice dewarding trick is to stand in enemy tower vision in fog. If the enemy tower is hitting you while you're supposed to be hidden in fog, then you know that there is a ward in the area. This is especially nice in the middle lane during the pregame, where in most games, there is going to be a mid ward. Thanks for watching this warding guide. I appreciate you taking the time to watch how to ward effectively, and I hope this dewarding and warding guide will help you secure MMR. Vision is incredibly strong in games, and if you're able to have superior vision compared to your enemies in games, you should be able to win a majority of your games. Good luck out there, guys, and I will see you all in the next video.